Start to Miami-Dade school year, the shifting blame, the multi-million-dollar contract with a failed platform product, hundreds of thousands of families left in an education void.
School Board Vice Chair Steve Gallen challenged the official narrative this week at a board meeting, and that is where the 9 board members who set policy for the district discovered some startling facts for the first time. Dr. Gallen joins us now via Skype. Dr. Gallen, good morning.
Good morning, Michael and Glenna. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
We are so glad you are. Dr. Gallen, the Miami-Dade public school system has had some spectacular successes over the last several years. This week was a disaster, starting with the cyber attacks. Take us through it. What happened?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. The Miami-Dade County Public Schools, as the 4th largest district in the nation, has realized tremendous success over the past decade. But this week, starting with the opening, has been a tremendously challenging scenario for our students, our teachers, our employees, our parents, and the entire community. Aside from the cyber attack, I think we had some initial challenges as we prepared to transition into a new platform with minimal time, minimal preparation, and minimal information as it relates to the history of this particular firm and this particular platform. So our Monday start off was a challenge, and in some cases disastrous, and it went from bad to worse throughout the week.
Dr. Gallen, we sort of are going to attack this from 2 different perspectives. There was this functional meltdown for the actual system, and then there was the actual platform, K-12, the company. So we're going to attack this in 2 different ways. So first, let's talk about what happened, because you have a skeptical public here right now, because what they've heard is on Monday they heard this company Cisco that the school board has been contracting with for years, really, an IT company, that there was a switch that was bad, so it was Cisco's fault. Tuesday it was Comcast's fault. Comcast didn't failed to communicate with the district. That's what they heard. Wednesday it was a cyber attack, and then Thursday this was all blamed on a 16-year-old and what IT experts say was a common and preventable denial of service tool. So with what you know, what really happened here?
And I think, Glenna, that is part of the problem. I think at the onset on Monday, when we were prepared to reopen our schools after a significant delay and denial of educational experiences for our students, the district had a problem on Monday. And as it relates to the entire shutdown of the entire system, we anticipated the administration providing us an update as it relates to what happened. And as you and many witnessed, there was a strong convicted message that the issue involved a switch and involved Cisco. We would have anticipated that those deliberations, that investigation, that inquiry would have taken place before we made a strong declaration as we did on Monday, but albeit we accepted that declaration, that explanation. As you indicated, the next day we anticipated everything being resolved, but Tuesday morning a problem continued to persist. It then pivoted from Cisco to being a problem with Comcast. And by late afternoon, we realized that there was another issue with Comcast and that we were now under a cyber attack. So the narrative continued to change over the course of the week, and there lies the problem. I think we have an obligation to do our fact finding, to deliberate over those particular issues that vex our district, that vex our system, and really give some sound information, not only to the board, but more importantly to the public. And I think there lies the problem in terms of us being able to maintain the confidence of the public and having the vulnerability of eroding their trust as the narrative continues to change.
So with the arrest of a 16-year-old and what is, by all accounts, an easily available, publicly available, common program to just block down a system, why, if that is the case, and I guess my question 1 is, do you really believe that is what took down the school system? And number 2, if so, why was not the IT department prepared for that if it has, as the superintendent said, fended off other attacks from foreign agents?
Yes, absolutely. What I've shared before and what is not new to the public or new to the district is that we're under attack all of the time. What can't be lost in this particular narrative is that although we were under attack, there was no penetration. And to fathom that a 16-year-old could take down the 4th largest district, one that has an infrastructure and investment of resources at $5.5 billion, I made it analogous to a Super Bowl NFL team being taken down by a Little League player. I also have not concluded that there is a nexus between these attacks and what has transpired over the course of the school week from Monday. I'm not convinced at this particular point, and I'm sure that there's more dust to settle. But as you indicated, that we as a district cannot simply be responsive, we have to be proactive. One of my colleagues 2 years ago proffered an item to take a look at this particular situation. Maria Rojas proffered an item relative to cybersecurity. So this is not something that is new to the board. This is not something that is new to the district. And this is definitely something that should have been anticipated, that should have been prepared for, and that we should have had the capacity to insulate ourselves from. Yeah. But again, I'm not convinced that there is a direct nexus between this attack of the 16-year-old on our system and many of the problems that vexed our district throughout the week.
Yeah. Dr. Gallen, at a news conference this week, Superintendent Alberto Carvalho said that there had been 8 individual cyber attacks on the school system by this young man, but apparently there were many more, and he talked somewhat vaguely about attacks from China, Russia, Ukraine, Iraq. What's going on? I mean, who are these people who are trying to get in and disrupt the Miami-Dade public school system?
Obviously, we would anticipate that, as reported by the superintendent, that this would be an ongoing investigation if in fact that reflects those attacks and where they emanated from. But again, Michael and Glenna, let's be very, very clear. The disaster, the debacle that happened over this past week, there's no direct nexus between the 16-year-old's alleged attack on our system and what has transpired with students being denied education, teachers being denied the opportunity to teach, and our school leaders and district officials being denied the opportunity to move forward in the manner that the board expects and that the community and children deserve.
So with that said, in all of the really national attention that this 16-year-old got on Thursday and Friday, this superintendent called the disruption, and I'm quoting him here, complex and malicious. And with what we know now, do you think that this was a complex and malicious act on his part?
What was described, as a matter of fact, is that the 16-year-old allegedly utilized very antiquated and unsophisticated means to attack our system. And these were means that were established nearly 17 years ago, and they have been described by many experts as unsophisticated. But we're a very sophisticated school district, so we expect, the board expects, the public expects, and I'm sure our superintendent expects for us to develop an infrastructure to stave off some primitive, unsophisticated attack from a 16-year-old student that lives in a 2-bedroom apartment and attends one of our schools. Yeah. This is not a national conspiracy. This is something that reportedly occurred locally. And again, I have not concluded that there is a nexus between what has perplexed our learning environment, our learning opportunities, with the alleged attacks of the 16-year-old that we've arrested. And again, I'm very careful to speak on a 16-year-old. He is still a minor. I do believe in the system of justice, and I will let the justice system run its course. So I'm not going to be in a position to indict, convict, and sentence where an allegation has been made until the dust fully settles.
Yeah, and we are glad to give that young man the presumption of innocence as well. Dr. Gallen, this was called, and we've all learned much this week about how these things work, a dedicated denial of service attack. And one expert told the Miami Herald, who deals with these things, it's really easy to prevent. The school system must be really out of date on their router configuration. Now, I don't know if this guy is right or not, but it sounds like he is.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I shared with you just a moment ago that this is not a new conversation that the board has led on. My colleague proffered an item that was passed by the board that directed the superintendent and the administration take a hard look at our cybersecurity infrastructure. That was approximately 2 years ago. Where we make investments in our school district, obviously, we've moved very rapidly to an online system over the past several years, and the infrastructure should be able to withstand something that is, again, a primitive, unsophisticated, normalized attack on school districts and organizations and companies throughout the world.
Dr. Gallen, much to talk about with the actual contract with the virtual school company K-12. We'll do that after this quick break. Stay tuned.
We are speaking this morning with Dr. Steve Gallen, Vice Chair of the Miami-Dade County School Board. Dr. Gallen, the school system is using this product called My School Online, developed by a company named K-12. Turns out we only learned in the middle of the week that this $15.3 million no-bid contract wasn't even signed. So is it in force, and was it a mistake on the part of Superintendent Carvalho that the contract had not been completed?
Michael, I wouldn't be in a position to speak for the superintendent and his proclivity relative to that contract, but what I will speak to is the obligation of the board. The board has an obligation to approve contracts that are $50,000 and above. However, the state statute does provide for some exceptions in which the superintendent does have wide latitude relative to contracts under emergency situations, situations involving instructional materials, etc. So there's an option for the superintendent to bring all of those items to the board or not. In this particular case, that option was elected not to bring it to the board, and where it is as it relates to a contract that has not been fully executed was something that we learned about in committee on Wednesday.
Yeah, well, can I interrupt you? I mean, were you concerned? I mean, did you say, oh my gosh, we are using this online learning system and we don't really have a fully executed contract?
Well, absolutely. I think the revelation during the middle of the committee meeting was for many a bombshell. It was a bombshell to me. But we did have some concerns going into the discussion relative to the K-12, not only its presence in our school district, but more importantly, its effectiveness in the teaching and learning of our students. That's why the discussion came up. It wasn't simply about the contract. The discussion was emanated on the issues relative to performance and effectiveness. And at this particular point, the entire transition has not performed as expected and has not been effective in the education of our students and in the ability of our teachers to teach. The added layer of this particular narrative was revealed when we found out that the contract was not fully executed. Our board chair raised the issue, as she always does, in terms of leading this board as relates to critical issues around the contract, and it was revealed that the contract had not been fully executed, despite the fact that they had come in with a transitional plan. They provided training. They were providing access to the curriculum, etc. So yes, the board does have some concerns, and I do expect and anticipate that that discussion and that level of accountability and transparency will be addressed this coming Wednesday at the school board meeting.
Dr. Gallen, the superintendent was with us a few weeks ago, actually just prior to virtual school going online. So we had none of these issues to talk about. But we did have the track record of K-12 to look at. It is not a good track record as far as student outcomes, allegations of politics involved, and donations and contributions and investments. And we asked the superintendent about that. And what he said was, contracting with K-12 was, what he said, not his decision, that the state provides only 2 options for virtual school, and this one he thought was far superior, and he purchased the content of it and nothing else. It is, now that you've looked into K-12, what can you tell us about this contract that is missing his signature, as you said, but what can you tell us about how this came to be?
Well, we clarified that in the committee meeting the other day. I was very adamant about that clarification. Yes, the state did provide for 2 approved online platforms, and K-12 was one, but the state did not mandate the utilization of either. So there was no mandate to utilize K-12 or Florida Virtual. So the fact that the state selected 2, we were not mandated to utilize it. But look, Michael and Glenna, there is a process that we have in place. There are current policies that we have in place to provide for that level of transparency, that level of discourse, that level of vetting by the board as well as the public. Our instructional materials process provides an opportunity for the board to vet instructional materials, but it also provides an opportunity for the public to weigh in. And because this was not brought to the board for approval, that vetting process did not take place.
Yeah.
As it relates to the superintendent's responsibility for it, he is the CEO of the Miami-Dade County Public Schools. He is in charge of the day-to-day operations of the school system, and where he makes recommendations to the board, it is our obligation and opportunity to approve or reject those recommendations. In this particular case, that transition was led by the superintendent, by his administration, and the accountability as it relates to that particular issue starts and stops at his desk.
Yeah. Dr. Gallen, it is a given that COVID-19 has just thrown a huge monkey wrench into life in general and into our public schools, into all schools. So that's as I say, that is a given. And yet, looking at what happened this week, I mean, the meat of what you all do in the Miami-Dade County Public Schools is teachers teach, students are supposed to learn. But that only happened intermittently this week. I mean, this was really a bad outcome. How's it going to get better?
I believe that it's going to get better with the leadership of our board, obviously the leadership of our administration, our superintendent, but I'm banking my money on our teachers in the schools, our school leaders in the schools, our parents who are going to hold us accountable, who are going to be actively engaged in their student learning, and this too shall pass. But what we have to do, we have to take a hard look at what happened and make sure that we take positions from a policy perspective to make sure that it does not happen again. There has to be lessons learned. Yes, we can be very good at correct and response, but we have to be proactive and anticipatory in terms of these particular issues that have affected our district. But most importantly, as you indicated, Michael, has denied the learning of our students. Hundreds of thousands of students did not realize the learning that they deserve, that they're entitled to, and that the public expects us to deliver on a day-to-day basis. So yes, we have work to do, but I know and I'm confident that we will persevere throughout this particular process with transparency, collaboration, but also accountability to make sure that we move this needle forward.
So that, real quickly, that all sounds really great, but more immediately, Tuesday after Labor Day, there's going to a lot of people watching this who are wanting to know on Tuesday morning what to expect for their students. Tuesday morning, is there change?
Well, there have been changes already, Glenna, and that's why I'm saying that the kudos goes to our teachers. As you may be aware, many of our teachers in grades 6 through 12 have already transitioned from the K through 12 platform. Those teachers are also already using different platforms that have proven to be successful, that they're fully trained on, and that are able to allow them to engage their students. We're going to transition to those particular opportunities for our K through 5, and as the superintendent indicated, we're going to make a determination as it relates to whether or not we're going to move forward with the K through K-12 platform altogether. But make no mistake about it, our teachers have already made decisions. They made classroom academic decisions that are based on what is best for their children and their parents, and they've started to pivot. Has it been done wholesale throughout the district? Absolutely not. And for me, that's an equity issue as it relates to some children getting something and other children is not getting it. And we're going to have to make it right for all children because we promise all children in the Miami-Dade County Public Schools the world. And
Dr. Steve Gallen, appreciate your time. Really good to have you with us. And thank you so much for all that good information.
User left your channel.